we had 4 people who the week before were in Alaska also working with children, and so this morning we're going to give an opportunity for Jon and for those who went to share also about their experience in Anchorage, Alaska, working with underprivileged children there. So Jon, come ahead.
Well, as Pastor Sam said, we, the 4 of us, myself, Andresa, Sarai, and Craig, who's actually preaching out of town today, went to Alaska with GraceWorks. GraceWorks Alaska. It's a organization that's been around for a number of years now, started by Scott Kirby up there, and their whole mission is to reach the kids that during the summer are like latchkey kids, underprivileged kids, and basically we just take over a park for a week. And while we were there were 10 different teams in 10 different parks. I believe that's right. 10? Was it 10? 14? That was the biggest. They averaged about 10 parks, but they were actually able to serve 14 parks while we were there. And we all stay in Central Baptist Church in Anchorage. Well, some of us, there were a couple of satellite sites that housed some other teams. But we were able to basically take our teams into the parks, take over the parks for about 3 hours in the afternoon, feed the kids, love on them a little bit, play some football, play some mouse on the ground. Y'all play a little bit. A lot of different versions of hopscotch and things like that. But just to see, the life in their faces and just knowing that, the situation, and we were close enough. It was a neighborhood park. We were in Kanchee Park in Anchorage, if you want to look it up. Kanchee, if you want to Google that. But you can see that it's in a relatively impoverished area. We could actually see when the kids went home, they went home to people sleeping in their cars and dilapidated, just run down. And a lot of the kids came, wore the same clothes most of the week and things like that. So you could see the impact immediately. We gave them meals. We had, if we had extras, we had them take snacks home, and it was just a great week. It was a great week. We left on the 14th, got back the 21st. We actually participated in 2 park parties. Typically, when you go, you only do a party in your park, where you invite the community to come, you do a cookout and things like that. We actually got to help with 2. We did our park, and then we helped with another, actually a park inside of a trailer park. We helped them do their park party, and just were able to give the gospel, give away a lot of different water bottles and T-shirts and things like that. Can you put the video up behind us? Just let them see some of the pictures. That'll go while we took that. Actually, these pictures that first picture was at 9 o'clock at night. It's still 24-hour sunlight there, which took some getting used to, I will say. But you'll see some of the kids that we worked with and everything. But I'm going to turn the mic over to whoever wants to go first and let them talk about their experiences too.
I'm not good with words, so I wrote a little something. At the beginning of the week, I was a bit discouraged with how small of a group of kids there was listening to the Bible stories. There was only 1 or 2 listening, but the very last day when we had the resurrection eggs, almost every kid was listening, and a couple parents as well. We had around 20 kids, not all at once, but here and there. One parent was sitting with her daughter in the group, and when we got to the egg with the dice, she was surprised and commented that she never knew they had gambled for Jesus' clothes. She was very interested. We played mouse on the ground until I couldn't play anymore. They loved this game so much, and I grew to love this game just as much. The first day we played mouse on the ground, the kids would help each other by distracting me, the tagger. One of them, Xavier, said we all look out for each other. That really resonated in my heart, and could feel the love from these kids. Peng was a pro at mouse on the ground. She never got tagged. And Janowski, Peng's brother, would always volunteer to be a tagger just to keep the game going. Not only did we share the Easter story with them, but we showed them Jesus' love through all the games we played and the Band-Aids we gave. Because even where there is one person, God is present and working in ways we don't see or know. Amen? If you ever want to go on a mission trip, I highly encourage it and give you this advice: be flexible. Thank you to everyone who prayed for us on this mission and for praying for Alaska.
So I just want to touch on some of the one-on-ones that we had. So at the beginning of the week, the kids they weren't standoffish, but they hadn't warmed up to us yet. And after spending some time with them, they started engaging with us more. And so like Jon said, we had a couple park parties that we helped facilitate. And at one of the parties, I sat down with a kid named Riley. And Riley, because I was running a face painting station, and Riley began telling me some of his experiences. I asked how school was going, how he liked his summer, and he said he liked his summer more because he got bullied in school. He said that he was going on about how they would corner him, and he would really try and keep himself composed, and until he's pushed to the very, very edge is only when he would lash out, and he really didn't like that. So he tried to remove himself from situations. And so I kind of introduced Jesus into the conversation. I said, well, do you ever pray about your bullies? And he said, no, because I know that God won't deliver me instantly. And I was very curious as to who told him that. So I asked him, I said, well, who told you that? And he said, my church, and he went into a few more details, and I proceeded to present the gospel to him. And he didn't quite understand how Jesus came down. He said, well, God's up there, and Jesus was here, and Jesus isn't God. And I kind of explained to him how that worked as much as I could to an 11-year-old. And the conversation went really well. When I explained to him that Jesus is love and he would be protected, he just had to pray. I saw a little light click in his head, and it was just super amazing because God was very much in that moment. And we prayed together, and I think that the group at that specific park, we're going to work with him a little more. So God was doing amazing things. I had another experience with one of our kids at our park. His name was Sunny. I have a couple of tattoos, and he was looking at them, and we were kind of talking about tattoos. And he was Tongan, I believe. So I had mentioned, when I get to heaven, I won't have my tattoos anymore, because he said, tattoos are forever, right? And I was like, yes, until you get to heaven. And we kind of started talking about how you get to heaven and how you need to love each other and love Jesus. And I saw another light click in his head as well. So just some of the one-on-ones that we had were very genuine, and it was just a really great experience. Another thing I want to touch on is flexibility. When we first got there, they gave us a rubber band to put on our wrist, and if anything was going wrong during our week, we were to snap it to be flexible. And we showed up our second day, I believe. Yeah, Tuesday or Wednesday we showed up, and there was a bouncy house in the park. We were told that bouncy houses are strictly not allowed in Alaska parks, so we were very confused. So a lot of the kids, they were not very engaging with us. They ate, the bouncy house was set up, they got the clearance to bounce, and they were just in there all day. But they were popping in and out of this bounce house, and we were able to feed them, give them refreshments because it was hot. And when we did our VBS session for the day, we did have at least one kid. And it was very eye-opening because as long as you're ministering to one person, that is what matters. It doesn't have to be 12. It doesn't have to be 5. As long as you have that one, it's just amazing. And just being able to share the gospel and the Easter story with these people in Alaska was just truly awesome. And it just reminds us to be flexible and to pray always and just to love our neighbors. And it was a great experience. So thank you.
Yeah, that was one of those things that we had to remember, is that, and Scott, we had chapel every morning. All the churches that came, we did a chapel service, and one of the things he said was that on the Friday when we were kind of giving our reports of what had happened and everything. One of the things that he said is that, they've been there all summer. The kids may not be responding to the gospel during your week, but some did before you got there, and Lord willing, some will after. And so it's just important to remember that, nothing we did was in vain. We were either following up on what had already been done, or we were planting seeds for things to come. And so, all in all, it was a win. And I'm sure they're going to remember that one summer when those guys from that church in Nevada came and loved on them. And they're going to remember the Christians did that. And so we just finished VBS, and this is kind of put in a plug for the next time we go, Lord willing, next year. If you did anything with VBS, this is a perfect trip to go on. It really is. You're loving on kids all week that won't get that at home, that won't get that at school, that won't get that from their family. They're going to get that from the churches that come. And Lord willing, we get a team to go next year because it is so well run. You just, as Pastor Sam has said, you just show up, and they've got everything else handled. And so just show up, ready to love on kids, prayed up, and just knowing that we may not see the impact, but God did. God will, okay? So we're so thankful that y'all prayed for us, and we're just glad that we got to go. Thank you.